All right, welcome to Buddy Book Club. I'm Dylan, here with the striker to my Barlow, Keith. What's up, buddy?
Oh, I had that exact same thing.
No, you didn't.
All right, we're on point.
We're already aligned. Well, here at the Buddy Book Club, we're breaking down bestsellers, and this week we'll be discussing Salem's Lot by Stephen King. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out to us about any past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter or Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify, so please download and subscribe. Keith, this is our second Stephen King book?
This second. We only did...
The Body?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did one short story, and now we did a long story. So here we are. And I think the Salem's Lot is pretty much about how if you have unprotected sex, your girlfriend's going to turn into a vampire and you're going to have to stab her in the chest. So wrap those boys up, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Cool. That was the moral. At least, you know, I'm a big subtext guy, and that's the subtext I got.
Well, the key, too, is if your son is missing, you know, I would definitely be worried unless he's with a priest. Then you're okay, you know.
Yeah.
If it's your 13-year-old boy is with a priest, no big deal.
I appreciate you bringing that up because it wasn't in any of my stock up, stock downs. But, I mean, this book was written before the movie Spotlight came out. But Callahan comes back to the house like, no, just tell your parents, like, you're with me, like, after hours. And then, like, I'll go back and I'll tell them that, like, we saw a vampire and you'll nod agreeingly and, like, they'll be fine. And it's like, sounds pretty rapey to me.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into some stock up, stock down for Salem's Lot. We did this book because it is becoming a major motion picture. It was supposed to be released actually this month, but it got pushed out. So if you want to read the book before the movie comes out, check it out, and then listen to us, and then watch the movie. Hit it 3 different ways, like a
porn star?
Well, I was thinking like D-Day, but yeah. I don't even, what? Excuse me?
You said hit it 3 different ways.
Oh my God, where's your head at? All right, let's get into stock up, stock down. Stock up, what do you got for stock up?
Stock up, Catch-22. So I don't know if you're familiar with the book. I've never actually read it, but
it's long.
I believe the whole premise is that I think they're flying over, is it Vietnam or World War II?
I think it's World War II.
Like the whole Catch-22, the principle is that you have to be crazy in order to be like flying over and bombing there. But if you go and tell someone you're crazy, then you can't be crazy because you're rational. Like, you know you're crazy, right? So that's the Catch-22, I think.
Okay.
But anyway, so the Catch-22 in this book is, let me get to the real point here, is that you have to be insane to think that vampires are real. But the only explanation is that vampires are real. That's the whole fucking book. It's 88% of the book. The problem, too, is that we know vampires are real. We're reading. We're seeing the other side of the coin. Mm-hmm. So we know they're already real. The whole book consists of them talking about, are vampires real? I'm like, I know. I know already. Like, so what's the point of reading this? Sorry, I'm already going to get angry because I didn't really like the book very much.
Isn't that kind of what the whole premise of vampires or zombies or stuff like that is that when someone's trying to tell you, like, hey, we can stop this, like, there are vampires right now, like, we can stop it, but in our rational world it's like, no.
But
like,
it wasn't like they were screaming it from the rooftops, right? They were so worried about their ego and their reputation and their just like bashfulness about whether they can tell anyone about it or whether they even can believe it or they'll be deemed crazy, that they don't do anything. So the two things are, you either call the military, call a town meeting, tell everyone, we have vampires here. They don't listen, fine. At least you tried. At least you did something. What they did was meet together, have debate club whether things are real or not, as the whole fucking town gets vampired. And then they don't do shit. So you either go all out or you just leave the town and you say, I don't give a shit about these people. But they towed the line of like, well, I don't want my reputation to be hurt. Like, who gives a shit about your reputation? These people are dying in this town. Like, what are we doing here, D-Man?
For one, I appreciate you turning vampire into a verb. That needs to happen.
First of all, I don't know what verbs and nouns and all those things are.
Well, you said they got vampired, so that's a thing.
Well, how else will you say that?
I don't know. Attacked by vampires? I don't know, whatever. But additionally, that's kind of one of the interesting conversations I thought that happened in this book was between Matt and Ben, when Matt's trying to convince Ben that vampires are real. That's what happened when he had that whole situation with Mike. And Matt was saying what you're saying is like, we got to call the National Guard, we got to do this, we got to do that. And Ben's like, they'll throw you in the loony bin. You know, they'll say, what the heck are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
Isn't that worth it, though?
It is, but if you're in the loony bin and then no one does anything anyways, how are you helping the cause? You're not. So Ben says they have to come at it from a rational perspective. They have to convince people to basically like rationally play this out in their head. Oh, vampires do exist. They are real. Because if someone bursted in my front door right now and said, there's vampires in the street, you got to get out of your house, I'd be like, hey, buddy, I don't really have anything valuable in here. So, you know,
right, but
you
if
might as well take
the town's population is slowly dying and you don't have any reason for it, isn't everything on the table for what it could be?
Yeah, there was a lot of deaths.
Yeah, we have a small town where there's a death every 5 years, and now there's 10 deaths in the a span of a week. It's like, wow, vampires. Let's back it up, you crazy person. That's a better theory than anyone else is bringing to the table.
I did enjoy. They're like, yeah, so a lot of deaths around these parts lately. I don't know what's been going on.
Well, couldn't they? All right, you could also just been like, the people up in the mansion there. What was it called? They're all spreading fucking some new disease. Who gives a shit? Just make something up. It doesn't even need to be vampires. Just say these people are coming at night and attacking people with some fucking disease that we don't even know of. Like, that's not the first time that has ever happened. You can just shape it in a different way. It just seemed like they had this malaise of like, whatever, we'll figure it out. I don't give a shit if all these people die while we do it. I just don't want my ego to be hurt. Like, I don't want people to think I'm a crazy person. It's like, that's worth risking.
I get it. The Marston house. I get it. And I think that probably would have been a better move, is like get Dr. Cody involved early, which they did, and then pretty much say, hey, some sort of crazy flu or fucking COVID hit in 1980, whatever the case is. Like, everyone's gotta stay indoors, don't let anyone in. If someone asks to come in, don't let them in, to at least get ahead of it. But I mean, the town is like you said, there's a general malaise that just like is in the town, and people weren't really interested. But I get the catch-22. It makes sense. Stock up. Ben's not really tied to anyone. Him and Susan should have just gotten into a car and just drove away. Just been like, we're out of here. Take your parents. Get the fuck out of there.
Everyone's like, you're crazy. And I'd be like, all right, we'll see you later. I already tried to tell you, but, what are you going to do?
All right, my first stock up is comic books, because without comic books, Mark Petrie would have been dead halfway through the book, and pretty much the whole thing would have gone to shit. He would have gone and unlatched the window to let Danny Glick in. Fortunately for him, he'd been reading those monster novels, and he knew all the shit. He was so on top of everything in terms of, this guy's how to identify a vampire, definitely don't invite them in, how to defeat vampires. He was on top of all of it just from reading comic books. And question for you, did you ever read comic books?
I didn't. I did read the Sunday morning comics.
Oh, the funnies. Okay, but no like actual comic books.
Have you ever seen a comic book? They're like not just pictures, they're like paragraphs.
Sometimes, yeah. I used to be big on it. DC comic book specifically.
I could read Spider-Man comics, or I could just watch the Spider-Man show, which is great, or X-Men show, which is great, So, or Batman show, which is great. So, at that point, I'd rather take the option of watching it.
That's the opposite of what this whole podcast is all about, though. We should just do a movie podcast instead of a book podcast.
This is movie people listening or getting into books, not the other way around, not being snobs, that are reading.
You're in a catch-22 right now.
Yeah.
Either way, thank God for comic books, because it saved Mark Petrie and made this book 16 hours, which is exactly what you wanted. What else do you have for stock up?
Goddamn. Stock up drinking use cases.
What?
Mike Ryerson.
Yeah, my boy.
The guy that basically he's feeling lethargic. He's not feeling great. It basically sounds like he has cancer or something that's going on, right? He's basically like can't get up during the day. He's just like barely can move.
Sounds more like mono, but yeah.
Or mono. The first thing you think of when, all right, this guy sounds like he's about to die, is you go to the bar, right? That's the first
Absolutely.
reaction. Okay. Just we're on the same page here. So instead of going to the doctors, which doesn't make any sense, you go right to the bar, where he runs into an educated man, Matt Burke, who immediately tells him, stop drinking. No, he doesn't do that. You go to the hospital? No, he doesn't do that. Yeah, just come back with me. Whatever, not a big deal. I think you might have been bitten by a vampire, but whatever. I don't care. Just come back with me. Yeah, don't go to the doctor. Go drink instead. The other thing, too, that I wanted to point out was that Ben at one point says, oh, I can't drink anymore because, I can't write after a couple pops. Which, I mean, considering Stephen King wrote the character, and Stephen King said at one point that he doesn't remember writing one of his books, Kuho? He doesn't even remember it because he drank so much during it. This Ben dude, grow up, huh, buddy? Like, figure it out. Like, you're not a writer if you can't drink on a couple pops. You're not a writer.
If you can't write after drinking a couple pops and taking a couple toots, then you're just a loser. And smoking 2 packs, like
that's just lubrication. We call that swing juice, aka finger juice type juice. I don't know.
Yeah, it works. I'm going to get into my next stock up, which is a convalescent protagonist.
Pardon? Bless you?
Like when there's somebody in the book or movie or whatever that's resting and recovering, or for some reason is bedridden, but they kind of act as the researcher or whatnot.
Oh, I was thinking like when 2 neutrons or protons go together, like a convalescent bond.
Covalent. That's covalent bond.
Not the same thing?
Classic mix-up. Definitely different. But yeah, that's pretty much like what Matt Burke is in this once he has his heart attack. And I always enjoy it, whether it's like Rear Window, where he's kind of stuck in his room but looking at stuff, or talk about comic books. We got Barbara Gordon, aka Oracle, in the Batman comics. Oh, Denzel in The Bone Collector. Have you seen The Bone Collector?
No, I haven't. The reviews didn't look very good for that.
It's a good thriller, but basically he ends up in a hospital bed and he's like trying to figure it out from his hospital bed, that kind of thing. Gotcha. So I kind of like that kind of character, and especially when they're trying to figure out, what to do. Matt's kind of the Bill Belichick in this situation. He's getting everyone to his hospital bed. He's saying, okay, here's the whole stuff with vampires. Here's the plan. You guys do this. You guys do that. Break. And then everyone goes out, does their thing, and then comes back to him. I wish there was a little bit more of like Barlow actually trying to like attack him in his hospital room. That only kind of happened one time and like didn't really. But he was, he's kind of the head of the snake. So if they were able to get him, granted his bum ticker eventually got him, but if Barlow was able to get him, that would have been the move. But I just like the idea of this guy who's kind of behind the curtains but pulling all the strings.
Although there was like 50 pages of them planning and Matt being like, here's all the things we're going to do. And then they don't do any of them. And we hear all the 50 pages of him like planning it out. And it's like, why did we even hear this if they're just not going to do any of this? This isn't one of those like, in a movie where they're showing, that's like a quick like flashes of them showing planning things and then things go awry and they have to change. They were just like, nah, never mind. We're just not doing that stuff. It's like, wait, what?
Or when at the end, it's like, okay, cool. But now let's split up and you guys go to Mark's house and we'll go to Matt's. And then they're all like, oh shit, that was a bad idea. Also, he made 300 steaks. What happened to those steaks? I feel like there should have been a montage of just Ben making steaks in some basement.
Do you think they were medium rare? Medium? What do you think?
AKES. Different.
Someone must have ate those, talking about different things?
I have one quick one and then the biggest one. Kind of shame that you didn't say the other one, but the first one, the quick one, Sunday is a nature day. Mark's parents don't go to church on Sunday. Instead, they spend their time in nature, take a hike, walk on the beach, whatever. Stock up to that. Neither of us, although we both grew up, I think you grew up going to church and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Did you do confessions?
No, I only did what, because I think you have to when you get confirmed. Like you have to.
Yeah, I didn't do it. But before I got confirmed, I said I'm not
so
doing
uncomfortable. I was like, oh my god. So yeah, I did that one confession. It was like super weird. I think it was mean to my sister or something like that. And he was like, all right, say 2 Hail Marys, get through the screen and touch my penis, and you're good.
I remember the guy being like, what else did you do though? What else? I was like, what? Are you breathing deeply in there? What the fuck?
I thought you didn't do confession.
No, I did when I was like 10. They like force you to do it all the time. And I remember them always being like, tell me more, I'd be like, I was meeting my sister, and then they're like, no, what else though? What else? You think about the other things. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
It's like trying to go on the Tonight Show or something. Like, okay, have a funny story for us. You're like, okay, well, at the supermarket the other day, it's like, okay, what else you got? What else you got? What else you got? It's like, that's it. I don't have any funny shit that happened to me.
I know. And also, how many bad things can you do when you're like 10 years old? You're not really doing anything.
Exactly. Well, it brings me to my next stock up. Jesus. The man himself.
Okay.
Because all the defenses against vampire have Christian overtones. I mean, except for garlic. Garlic, probably. That's an ode to my paisans. But Mark and Susan knowing the Lord's Prayer by heart is the equivalent of like a armful of grenades when you're fighting vampires. So huge stock up to Jesus, because without him, these guys all would have been screwed. You know, they're turning crosses into all this stuff. Father Callahan should have been a way stronger component to battle the vampires. Granted, he did like kind of save Mark in that situation, but and his story kind of was weird. I wondered what happened there.
That's in my hate as well.
Yeah. But Keith, I have to ask you, we kind of discussed this earlier, but are you sure? Are you 100% sure vampires don't exist?
No, I'll never say anything doesn't exist.
Exactly. Like, you just never know. So to all the listeners out there, it might be safe to just learn the Lord's Prayer, like just in case, you know. I'm going to make sure I remember that. Yeah, I'm going to keep a silver bullet in case there's werewolves. What else do we have to worry about? Dracula, werewolves, Frankenstein?
You can't have sex with someone, otherwise you'll have to drive a stake through their heart or something. I had no idea why that didn't make any sense. Is that something in vampire lore that they needed to include?
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that either.
They're like, did you have sex with her? It's like, yeah, well, now you have to kill her. It's like, what? So, like, we can't kill any, like, people that are married?
Yeah,
Is that how that works? Like,
he's like,
what?
He's like, Father Callahan, I already drove my stake into her, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, okay. So, Jesus, stock up. Let's get into stock down. Keith, what do you have for stock down?
This one's going to be a long rant, probably, again. But suspense, stock down.
Suspense?
Yeah, suspense, not suspenders.
That's what I thought, okay.
Beginning of the book, and this is the audiobook, so I don't know if this was the actual book, but we have Stephen King talking about the plot of the book. The plot consists of a vampire in a small town and taking over and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was the plot, but okay, whatever. You know, not a big deal. We couldn't save that for the end, so I can go in without realizing this is a vampire book. You know, that'd be nice, but, you know, we get that immediately. Then we go right into the prologue, which is two nameless figures, quote unquote, which are clearly by chapter like 2, you know who the nameless figures were. Like, so what was the point of even doing that?
Oh, really? I thought that was Barlow the whole time.
They were like checking the newspaper, being like, what happened in that town?
Yeah.
And they described his characteristics as like a tall,
dark, and handsome.
And then the kid, obviously, there's only one kid that's followed pretty much the whole book. So
yeah,
it was obviously him.
Well, I thought it was maybe like they turned Mark and now they were like vampires.
And they describe him as a writer.
Oh.
You knew that right away.
Yeah, I forget stuff immediately upon listening to it.
There's just zero suspense. So, like, I knew right when he meets all these people, I'm like, these people are all going to die, or they're not going to make it out of the town. So when Susan died, that should have been a huge, like, oh my God, Susan died, even though her character was kind of fucking vanilla ice cream.
Vanilla's delicious.
It should have been a big shock, but it wasn't. It was just like, yeah, obviously, like, everyone's going to die except these two people. So, I mean, it'd be like going to a 10-course meal. Mm-hmm. And the person being like, by the way, the end, we have tiramisu. It's the best in the country. It's the best we've ever had. Everything else is okay. Here's a salad. And you're just like, fuck, now I just want that tiramisu. You know, now you just have that in the back of your head. You're just like, that's the only thing that matters, the ending. And it's gone. This book should have been anti-mystery. That was the genre. Anti-mystery. There's no mystery. There's no suspense. Just a story that you already know the ending to.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know you were a huge fan of tiramisu. Now that I know.
Oh, I'm a big tiramisu guy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Thanks. I appreciate that.
That's what you got from that already. God damn it, Dana. 90% of the reason I like books and like movies.
The payoff. You're looking for the payoff.
And like books that don't have much of a payoff. And that's why I like the Taylor Jenkins Reid's, or did I say her name wrong?
Taylor Jenkins Reid.
Yeah, whatever. those books were like impressive to me because there wasn't really this crazy huge big ending or
It's not like Daisy Jones and the Six like turns out her and what's his name are brother and sister or something.
they pull M16s out and start shooting. Yeah, so I was like, oh, I really appreciate this book because I liked it because it's not my typical. But this one is my like would be a typical genre, but they literally just crucified it to stay in the Christian theme.
Yeah, stigmata. Okay, my first stock down is Cardi B. So WAP, you're familiar with that tune, that number?
Yep.
Totally stolen from Charlie Rhodes, the bus driver, who must be one of your favorite characters.
I know. I don't know who.
The bus driver who was like the curmudgeon that was pissed at everybody.
Oh, yeah. That dude's... Okay, there's like 50 side characters in this book. I don't know how you'd ever keep track of any of them. But yeah, go on.
But he called at one point, he referred to the principal of the school as a wet-ass principal. So he pretty much coined the WAP phrase.
Yeah.
And then Cardi B makes a song about it, and it takes over the country. Yet Charlie Rhodes is just, vampire version of Charlie Rhodes is just sitting there in his bus pissed off because he didn't get any credits. I was also wondering, I don't know, my brain's weird. So after reading that, couldn't sleep that night because I was thinking, like, what is a wet ass? Like, what does that mean? I'm like thinking about this principal. Like, he's like, oh, he's a wet ass principal. Like a wet blanket? Is that what we're talking about? Sometimes if you get out of the shower and maybe you don't take the blow dryer to your butt.
Is that something you do? Wait, pardon?
or spread in front of the AC for a minute.
Right. Well, that's normal. Yeah.
Then you're walking around a little warm down there, and it's uncomfortable. So is he just like uncomfortable? I'm confused. But either way, wet ass principal coined by Charlie Rhodes. Fuck you, Cardi B. Stock down.
Hey, let me ask you something. When you're in the shower, where is this going? No, do you face the shower head or you turn your back to it?
Both. Equal opportunity employer.
Really? Okay. Because usually apparently this is like one of those unspoken things, but like half the population hits the shower on their neck, the other half hits it on like their chest.
I probably spend 65-35 pointed away, but initially you get in and you do the whole thing. I mean, I couldn't imagine just like facing the shower the whole time because I like to have my eyes open.
Yeah, I'm 95 hitting the neck and then like 5% quick.
Yeah.
Hey, listeners, vote in or call in. Let us know. We'll put a poll.
Yeah, put a poll up. I got a system for everything. I'm just a little bit of a psychopath, especially with eating stuff. I eat a Twix. I usually
in the shower?
No, I just mean like in general. If I'm eating a Twix, like I have a system for that. I eat all the chocolate off and then the caramel off, that kind of thing. And I was even sitting with the SGF the other day, and we were eating peanut M&Ms watching a movie, and she was like, how could you possibly eat these in a weird way? Because she always tries to like break my stuff. I was like, well, my system is you suck on it until the candy shell starts to break. And
you're a crazy person.
And then you squeeze it so you get all the shell off. And then you suck all the chocolate off, and then you eat the peanut. And she's like, literally like, you're absolutely psychotic, and I shouldn't be with you. So I have the same system in the shower. It's just not with all that other sucking stuff. You got to have a system. It's all about having a system. So my system involves facing and not facing the shower head. What else do you have for stock down?
Stock down, education, and open-mindedness. Let me get to it here. They want to enlist Dr. Jimmy Cody, I think that's his name.
James Cody, my boy.
Into vampire fighting crew. I mean, they're basically getting the boys back together, getting a vampire crew. But they're like, I don't know how he'll react. Matt, the teacher, specifically is like, yeah, when I taught him, he was like a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, open-minded guy. But now that he went to medical school and college, I don't know if he's going to be open-minded anymore. And the reason he says that he might not be open-minded is because he might not want to go tell the parents of the Glicks that just had one of their sons killed and missing. The others just died randomly from some anemia thing they don't know about. That Jimmy wouldn't go and tell them, hey, I'm going to dig up your kid, by the way. Dig up his grave and just go through his body again. Let me do that. That's why he's not open-minded, because he wouldn't possibly think to do that. It's like, pardon me? That's what makes you closed-minded, is you wouldn't fucking dig up a 12-year-old's body from the grave?
I'm following, and I also think that was kind of weird. But at the same time, I could see his thought process in that your imagination's open as a child, and you'll believe anything. And then if you get into medical school or from a doctor, you're just like, no, like I've read studies, like this is just not the case. You know, it must be rabies or it must be this. There's all these other different options that aren't vampires are taking over our town.
That's true. But I just thought it was funny that, like, hey, go tell the parents to dig up this 12-year-old body. It's like, what? It's like, oh, what are you, fucking closed-minded now because you went to college, hotshot? It's like, pardon me?
Oh, college boy.
Yeah. Oh, doesn't want to dig up a grave. Wow.
My next stock down is Home Alone, the movie, not being Home Alone. This Barlow guy has Macaulay Culkin beat. I mean, yeah, Home Alone is a classic, but Barlow has not one up. He's got 3 up on Macaulay Culkin. We all thought booby traps such as, you know, flying paint cans or blowtorches or bricks to the face were the top of the line. Not It's because our boy Barlow definitely disagrees. His process, you know, instead of Macaulay Culkin's process, his process is he kills the lights in the whole place, right? So there's no lights, can't see anything. Gets rid of all but the top 2 stairs going down to the basement, but leaves a little more handrail. So if you can kind of see it from the top of the stairs and the fading outdoor light, it's like, okay, there's a full set of stairs here. Au contraire, mon frere, there aren't. There's only 2 stairs. So that was really smart in my opinion. And what's at the bottom of your fall though? Is it, you know, feathers, you know, paint, you know, something silly? No. It's a slew of kitchen knives pointed straight up. So when you fall, you are impaled by 6 sharpened Wusthof knives. Let's just say that the wet bandits or the sticky bandits, whatever Home Alone you're going for, these guys wouldn't have lasted 2 seconds in the Barlow house. All right. Home Alone would have gone from an hour and 36 minutes to an hour and 10. Yeah. No joke, especially because this book takes place during the Vietnam era. This is like a bouncing Betty or some crazy Viet Cong trap where there's just, you know, spikes in the ground, like some straight Rambo shit.
Bungee sticks.
Bungee sticks?
I think that's what they're called. That's the...
I dig it. I mean, there's all sorts of crazy stuff going on.
It's Punji, punji sticks.
Punji sticks. Oh.
Booby traps, stakes in the ground.
Oh, cool. Good to know. Yeah, so maybe Barlow spent some time on Hamburger Hill in the Mekong Delta. But either way, he got it figured out. Stock up Barlow, stock down Macaulay Culkin. Sorry, buddy.
So why are they not bringing, like, candles and they know these vampires, like, only weakness is the sun, and they're like, all right, let's just show up to these places. We'll just turn the lights on when we get there. Like,
yeah, no, I thought that too. I was like, why doesn't everyone have a flashlight? And then they're like, hey, where's Ben with those 300 stakes? And then you just like smash cut to Ben, like 50 stakes in, just like still sharpening stakes in the basement. Like they said, we need 300.
Why do they need 300? I still don't get it.
The whole point of a stake is it's reusable.
Right.
You stab someone and then you pull it out and you stab the... I mean, I get having more than
Maybe
one.
He was making a list of people that they've slept with so they could kill them. Because otherwise you wouldn't be able to kill them, right? That was what we learned, right? So
God, 300 stakes. This Ben guy must have been quite the coxman. Did you have any other stock down?
Yeah, last one. I think you did this last week, but policing or police officers, stock down.
We have a lot of stock down on police, but...
We got this officer... Parkinson Gillespie.
Yeah, I love Gillespie.
He's kind of a dickhead right away, right? He's like, hey, Ben, where you been? And he's like, oh, you know.
Hey, Ben Ryerson there. You're new to these parts. So.
Yeah, you're new to these town. Therefore, you're my main suspect. He just comes out and tells him. He's like, okay. And then, so he goes out and does all this research, calls up the FBI. You know, he's doing some good police work, it seems like.
Yeah.
Then they come to him and they're like, yo, the town's being overrun by, he's like, by vampires? They're like, oh, yeah, you knew? He's like, yeah, I don't really give a fuck about this town. It's like, wait, what? Where's this apathy coming from? It made literally no sense. They made this, like, Carcassonne Gillespie, and we actually are in his head at some points, and he seems like a normal, like, police officer that, like, wants to protect the town. We get fucking 700 pages of random characters that don't matter. We get one sentence to describe why he doesn't give a shit about it. He just says... oh, like, these kids growing up are, like, they care about their movies and things. I don't care about this town anymore. What? Where's the turn? What is this? It didn't make any sense, D-Man. Why are we reading 18 hours and we get one sentence to describe why someone just doesn't give a shit anymore? Why, D-Man? Why?
He's like, well, Ben, ever since you pulled up the skirt of that there Susan Norton... This whole town's been a-changing.
Yeah. Yeah. Sleeping outside of marriage? We can't have that in these parts.
No, that's not, it's New Hampshire. Where's your New Hampshire
I
accent?
I have one accent. It's Australian mixed with Southern.
Yeah, I agree
God
with you.
damn it! That put me over the edge. I was so upset when that happened. I was like, "What are we doing?"
I'm sure that somebody who's like really smart is going to say that, this has some sort of subtext with like the whole Vietnam stuff going on. Just the change of the way that the young folk were back then with the change of the 60s going into the 70s. But for me, I'm with you. It didn't make any sense to me. I was like, hey, I thought he was going to be like, all right, I'm going to grab my double barrel shotgun and we're going to go up there and I'm going to kill a vampire. Let's get into some favorite scene. Did you have a favorite scene in this book? It's 16 hours. You better pick one.
I liked the Mark Petrie bully scene, which had nothing to do with the book. I also like the graveyard scene where the person that's buried, the Glick kid, is like talking to him and basically like, yo, dig me up. Dig me up. I thought that was
Mike
cool.
Ryerson.
Oh, was that him?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all right. I liked him.
Well, I like the bully scene. I also think the bully scene's like important to set up Mark's character so that that, yeah, he might be like bookish and whatnot, but he can still fight and he's smart. He knows that like I got to put this bully down and keep him down.
I would almost liked it better that he gets beat up by the bully and he keeps coming because he's like, I don't give a shit if people are bigger, they're stronger, they're faster than me. I'll keep persevere. And that would have made more sense for him. I
know that it doesn't make a lot of sense logically for you with Matt Burke realizing Mike Ryerson's a vampire, or like the bar scene before that then leads to his house where he realizes he's a vampire. I enjoyed that as like, oh, okay, here's the setup for the vampires. Like now the vampires are really in this book because it was like 10 hours in. So I like that one. And then I also liked, probably my favorite was Ben and Dr. Cody when they sit in on Marjorie Glick. I think this is like probably the most cinematic, like scary horror cinematic when she wakes up from under the cloth and attacks them. They have this like huge fight with her in the morgue that then leads to Dr. Cody getting bit and him having this whole system that he's going to do to like not get the vampire juice inside of him, which somehow works and was genius. I just thought that fight was fun. And like when this comes out as a movie, that's what I'm probably most excited to see.
Or like him cooking up those 300 steaks.
Yeah. All this stuff's happening and they have like, sometimes those movies do like two boxes. Like you can see both things happening on one screen. It's like all
24.
Yeah, exactly. So one box is like all this stuff going on. The other one is just like Ben sharpening steaks. Pick your character. Who'd you have for your favorite character in this book? There's a lot to choose from, so.
I already said Mark Petrie. I mean, first he beats up that bully and then he's like, all right, I'm going to just go over to this house and kill the vampire. Like, he's just like, I'm taking this shit in my own hands. He didn't have to fucking do 13 book club meetings like we do here to determine if there's vampires or not. He's just like, oh, yeah, there's vampires. And then he just takes action and just do it yourself. Be a gamer one time so people don't die.
Yeah.
And he does that, so. And then he escapes, too.
Yeah, I mean, Mark's my character as well, but I thought that they probably should have called a little bit more cavalry or had a little bit more going on besides, like, one cross that they were then going to go into the Marston house and just like kill the king vampire. Maybe have a little more.
Was Susan doing that on her own, or was
she was doing it on her own and she ran into Mark, who was also doing it on his own?
But Mark was like, yeah, I'm a gamer. That's the difference. Susan was like, oh, I think there's vampires here. I'll go check by like sneaking up there by myself. It's like,
yeah,
what?
None of that really made any sense. But I did enjoy his like references to Houdini when he's like, okay, I gotta like stress out my whole body to keep the knots loose so that when I like de-stress, I can get out of them. That was all good. Love, hate. Let's get into love. What'd you love about Salem's Lot by Stephen King?
I never understood why books had photos of the author on them until this book. Ben's just casually walking around a park and then sees some girl reading his book, and then he's like, I assume he points to the book cover and is like, that's me, like that's huge. You know what I mean? Like that's a big upsell. That's why you do the cover photo.
Yeah. Before he pointed to it, he did drop his pants. He dropped his pants and said, that's me.
Do you recognize this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that's good, some good insight into an author's mind of like, this is why I got to put the cover photo in case I see someone reading it and I can be like, that's me, by the way.
It is kind of weird. I never thought about that. The paperbacks, they usually have like the author's picture on the back. And then in the hardcover, it's like, about the author, and it's on like the back inside flap. I'm never really that interested. Maybe it's just because like the internet's there now, so if like I'd look it up, but I guess in the past you do want to know like a little about the author. But imagine Stephen King having like 50 books and it's like about the author. It's like, okay, like, yeah, I know the guy.
But imagine if like artists, like you saw like a painting and then they put like their picture next to it. Like, this is me, I painted this.
Yeah,
right? It's kind of weird.
It is weird. It is weird.
But
this is why we don't have pictures of ourselves anywhere. Well, I guess on those videos you make me do, but outside of that,
we got to sell an image here, and you're the face, but you just won't put your face out there. I keep on telling you, if you want this podcast to somehow get less downloads, you put my face out there, and we'll start doing that.
I disagree.
It'd be impressive.
You look wise.
I look like Stryker.
You are the Stryker to my Barlow. What I loved about this book was the word prevert instead of pervert. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I didn't understand. I thought they just read it wrong in the audiobook. I was like, pardon?
No, it's prevert.
Which I've done before. It's fine.
And so that's what I thought. It was like, maybe it's just like some weird there. It's like a New Hampshire thing or something. So I looked it up.
Although perverted is a word, so I guess it makes sense.
But isn't it? Yeah. It's perverted, isn't it?
Oh, is it? I thought it's I don't know. I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, it's perverted. It's not preverted.
Okay. Oh, I've been saying it wrong. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I liked prevert, and according to the internet, it's a quote unquote humorous alternative to pervert. but it doesn't really make any sense. Like, well, how is that funny? I don't understand.
Yeah.
So I just enjoyed it. Every time they said prevert, it kind of made me chuckle. What else did you love?
I thought this was kind of funny. The guy gets bit, and he's like, I liked it. I got an erection from it. When he was getting bit by the vampire there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense. It's the opposite of what would happen, right? If you're losing blood, wouldn't you... It'd be the opposite of Viagra, right?
Maybe your blood is just trying to run away from that neck wound and it just goes to your penis.
Although, I think, didn't we say we read some book where the guy dies and gets an erection and that's actually a real thing?
Yeah, I think so.
But also, it didn't make sense, too, because he's like, oh, I really enjoyed it. It's like, I don't need a piece of cake or a piece of steak, and then be like, oh man, I really like this and get an erection. That's not the same thing as like enjoyment and erections aren't, unless I'm doing it wrong. I mean, sometimes I do, but not every time,
Well, yeah, causation and correlation aren't the same. So you're definitely doing it wrong, but that's not why. I think the point is that when, the vampires like lure, when they lure you in and they use their other powers and whatnot, it's like part of their poison in a way. It like makes you feel like you don't want to fight back. You're down for whatever happens, and
it's like Poison Ivy and Batman.
Yeah, and because vampires are almost like the opposite of. I just said yeah, even though I didn't listen to what you said. I'm sorry, that was rude. But vampires are like the opposite of God or like Jesus or whatever. It's like there's a sexual nature to it. So it checks out for me. It checks out.
Okay.
And I'd hope that if I ever got bit by a vampire, I'd hope that I'd go out with a boner. Speaking of vampires, my second love here is just classic monsters. Whether we love this book or not, I enjoy something with just some classic monster vibes. So I don't need these crazy creations and whatnot. I mean, I like some of those, like, obviously Predator and stuff like that. The Terminator, those are really fun. But you just rarely get this kind of classic monster movie, classic monster book. And this one was done in the most classic way, meaning like it's not like fast zombies like in 28 Days Later or something like that. This is a pure vampire book. It's really just Bram Stoker's Dracula taken into this, sleepy New Hampshire town and let him run amok. So I like that. They kept it classic, and it's something that I thoroughly enjoyed. And when it comes to these kind of things, I'm thinking vampires and werewolves are two things that I thoroughly enjoy. Not a big Frankenstein's monster guy. Mummies, The Mummy, Brandon Fraser, what's up? The Whale, people love it. The mummies don't really do it for me, so I think vampires is probably my top one. What else do you have for love?
A couple quick ones. Rolling up the sidewalks means closing the businesses. I thought that was cool. I like that. I like that saying.
Shutting the place down.
Yeah, they say that a bunch of times. It's like, oh, right before they roll up the sidewalks, and I was like, oh, so like the sidewalks like grass and they like roll it up, or like I couldn't figure out what that meant. I looked it up. I was like, oh, Okay.
Yeah, I wonder what the like etymology is of that, or entomology, whatever the thing is. I wonder where that comes from. Because I bet you, like, before there were sidewalks, like, the local business was responsible for putting something out in front of your store. Interesting. I like that. My last love is just fucked up shit happening in a sleepy town. It's a trope for sure, but it's a trope I can subscribe to. And it's definitely a Stephen King thing. Whatever Stephen King book you're reading, it's probably happening in some sleepy town, and all of a sudden shit goes crazy. Just, you see this town, it's like everyone knows each other, and then all of a sudden everything runs amok. I enjoy that. I like that trope. I'm down. Especially throw a classic monster in there. We're good. So I enjoy that as well. Did you have any other loves?
Just that people take sleeping pills, when they're in terror, they take sleeping pills and laxatives, which I did not know was a thing, but I'm going to test that out next time I'm, a little worried.
Wait, what?
So, during the book, they're like, typically, people in terror would take sleeping pills and laxatives. And I was like, wait, what? What now? Laxatives? But hey, it's from Stephen King's mouth to my ears,
Huh. No, to your butt.
Right.
But yeah, interesting. I feel like when you're scared, the phrase is, I literally shit myself. So
right.
I feel like you don't need laxatives. Like, it's just going to happen naturally.
When you get nervous, you get a stomach ache for sure. So maybe that just helps release it,
Yeah, okay. I can dig it. Well, what'd you hate? Let's get into it.
One of the biggest things was we're 14 hours in. I wrote this as a note, and I basically was yelling this note when I wrote it. He goes on that diatribe about what everyone eats in the town.
Yeah.
We're 14 hours in. Literally, the plot, to be summarized 14 hours in, was there might be vampires. That was 14 hours of there might be vampires in this town. Nothing had literally happened. You don't get a subplot when you haven't done shit for 14 hours. You do not get that. You have to buy that from me. You know what I mean? You have to buy a sub-story. You can't just fucking throw that in there for no reason. Like, if I'm reading a big, long book, like if you're reading Brandon Sanderson, right? He'll do some of those subplots where it'll just be a side story. That's fine. He earns that. He earns that from me. He does enough in the plot to get to that. You're allowed to do that. When you haven't done shit for 14 hours, you don't get a subplot. I'm fucking pissed about this. I was reading that yelling. Like, what is this bullshit? Get to the story. We're 14 hours in. You haven't done shit in this book. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
You get it. That, the subplot is to give you a break from the roller coaster, not to, we're on the fucking track still that hasn't moved.
Yeah.
You can't give them now a break from that.
Yeah, it's like the subplot's like the flat part of the roller coaster after you already been through the whirly whirls. And unfortunately, they were still on the flat part, and it's just nonstop flat part. And then I was like, wait, what? I agree. I did early on, I think it was chapter 8 or chapter 9, when it talked about the town and set up those characters. I was okay with that because I was like, okay, it's really setting up the vibe of this town, who does what, whatever. He's very concerned about the setting and the people in it, and to make you feel like you're immersed in this town before it goes to shit. But it took so long for it to go to shit that I forgot all of what he talked about. And then 8 hours later, we're talking about what people are eating. And I was like, wait, who were these characters again? Am I supposed to remember these characters from 8 hours ago? Because the focus was just on these people. I think it'll translate better to film, where you can kind of, do the quick cuts of someone sweeping under the shop and turning the sign from open to closed or whatever the case is, and showing the woman with her binoculars peeking out the window. And those are the intros, as opposed to these long, this is very Stephen King-esque, I feel like, but these kind of long moments where it's okay, I get it. I don't need to know what they're having for how they like their steak. He likes it rare. It's this person likes it medium rare. This person provides whatever. It's oh my God, I get it. So, yeah.
I was zoning out for a lot of this book, but in the body, he earned it. You remember that pie story in the body? That had nothing to do with him. It was just
phenomenal.
I was like, that's cool. Yeah, it was great, but this did not earn
Well,
that.
On the side, I'm reading Moby Dick, and it's half earned, because the story was really interesting. But then I was actually outside gardening the other day or whatever, and put on Moby Dick, and there's an entire chapter just devoted towards the identification of and the species of all different whales. It was an hour to 2 hours of this is a right whale, this is a killer whale, this is a blue whale.
Is it even accurate? Are you just hearing stuff that's no longer actually true?
Well, exactly. And it's from what this guy's gathered from talking to other seamen So it's like,
Yeah.
wait, what? Like, we're just like going through the genus whale and just going through everything. It was fascinating. As someone who likes that animal stuff, I found it to be somewhat interesting. But for the book itself, I was like, where is this coming from? It's like they just like stopped the book, took an encyclopedia of whales, and just stuffed it in the middle. So yeah, very similar. But he had kind of earned it because the story was better.
I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I gathered up semen, it'd be a lot of nickels.
Hey.
Are you talking about? All right. Anyways,
so I had a lot of unnecessary characters. My other hate was the Barlow killing climax. We go through this like 16-hour book, and I'm like ready for this huge battle. I mean, this is after the whole Cody falling into the knives. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a wild battle to like actually kill Dracula. And I don't know if I wasn't in the right mind space or something, but I feel like I just missed it. Like, they just like took his coffin out of the basement, like brought him outside and like stabbed him. And it was like, all right, that's it? Is that what happened?
I didn't really know what was going on, honestly.
Yeah.
Between that and the priest just like, all right, I guess I'm leaving.
Fucking
I was
off.
like, wait, what? What happened with him? What's the story there? Like, it just seemed like the build-up for these characters didn't have any payoff.
Yeah, like Callahan got bit, but he wasn't a vampire. Or he didn't get bit. He was just like one of his undead.
He made him like face his like past, which must mean that he was touching kids in the past, right? That's the only answer. What could he have done in the past that was so bad that he had to face that he like had to leave the town once he faced it again?
Yeah, but they also said early on when the Callahan thing came, talk about your thing about how the suspense stuff. Callahan was, he says, I'll never forget that moment. Even in my later years, I'm never going to forget like this moment or whatever. So like, okay, he lives. But then he lives as like one of Dracula's or like Barlow's like not vampires but students kind of things. I don't know. It was a little weird.
He apparently comes back in other Stephen King books, but like okay.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Did you hate anything else?
Susan dating a dude in the town, the small town, for a year and a half, and then just up and deciding I'm gonna date this Ben Mears guy instead. It's like
the grass is greener, baby.
Yeah, I'm like, that's kind of especially in a small town, that's kind of a dickhead move, no?
Well, I live in a small town, and let's just say J.K. Rowling came into town and she was flirting with me. I'd be like, sorry, babe, I gotta go. There's this billionaire friggin' writer that wants to hook up. Like, see ya. I get it.
Imagine the bedtime stories. Oh my god.
Oh my god. Just imagine just having her read you. Actually, I don't want her. I want Jim Dale reading me Harry Potter. I'd marry Jim Dale.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Can you produce the stories and then have Jim Dale talk them to me? I don't know why you brought up J.K. Rowling, but all right, fair enough.
I was just thinking that the only, I guess, TJR could come into town.
But also, she didn't like break up with him or anything. She was just like, all right, I'm dating this guy. And then the guy was like, what the fuck?
She
and then
was
like
keeping her options open.
Oh, well, listen, that's fair. But also, Sammy Hunt wrote a song about breaking up in a small town, and you got to take that to heart,
I don't know, actually.
You don't know the Sam Hunt song, Break Up in a Small Town? Let's give it a listen.
Is he a
Great
country
song.
music guy?
Yeah, but he's like country pop, so it's good.
My last hate is, where are the bats? Where are the bats? We're talking vampire stuff. It's classic vampires. Where are the bats in this story? They like don't even really reference it. I was waiting. They open the basement door and like a bunch of bats fly out. Nothing. No bats. They embrace all the other vampire tropes, but they don't embrace bats. It made no sense to me. I wanted the Marston house to be filled with bats in all the trees.
And then Ben Mears becomes Batman. Oh, nice.
Ben Man. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's the origin story of Batman, right? He gets like scared of bats. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, checks out.
You've got mail.
This is from Bjorn Burke.
Oh, nice. Where's Bjorn from?
I forget, but he's a tennis player. So, good for you, Bjorn. What is the best vampire book / movie / TV show?
Other than Twilight, or?
Well, is that your opinion? I've never seen them. Are they any good?
I like some shitty movies and things like that. I saw like some clips of that on TV. It was terrible. It does have the dude became a really good actor though. That's in it.
Pattinson?
Yeah, he's really good actor.
He was good in Batman. I actually liked him in Batman.
Yeah, no, he's great.
Okay, well, my probably number one is Blade. I mean, that movie was phenomenal, and it does not get enough credit. He is a superhero in the DC comic book franchise, so he does not get enough credit for like kind of starting this whole superhero thing, the new run of superheroes. So that was really good. I appreciate when there's a take that's not like your classic take. What We Do in the Shadows I thought was like kind of fun because it's like a mockumentary about vampires, but I didn't love it. I mean, Interview with a Vampire, people love True Blood.
Mine's gonna be a.
You're gonna go with that chick. What's her name?
You know it.
Underground or Underworld or whatever.
The Underworld. Yep. My girl.
Kate Beckinsale. Well, it's got vampires and werewolves.
Putting a note for it right now for a Rotten Tomato variance. 31% by critics, 79% audience score. So she looks not bad in that movie.
No, she looks amazing in it. I think the special effects in that, like the practical effects.
Do they not hold up?
No, are phenomenal. Like the monster effects are really, really good. The movie itself is not good. I watched it.
Really?
I watched it this last year or something like that because I'd never seen it and you talked about it. It was just like very much whatever. It's a good shitty movie Sunday kind of thing, but if it was between that and Blade, like I'm taking Blade over that. All right, let's cast this movie. There's already been a couple adaptations, a mini-series in 1979, another one in 2004, and now we're in for round 3, this time with Gary Dauberman at the helm. He wrote on the It movies, which I really liked, and he's done some stuff in like the Conjuring universe. So he's into the like horror vibe. So yeah, I'm interested in this one. It was set to be released in theaters this month, which is September 2022, but has been delayed until spring 2023. The cast is set, and it's set with Lewis Pullman at the helm as Ben Mears. Lewis Pullman, you might remember him from actually most recently Top Gun Maverick, where he plays Bob. Have you seen Top Gun Maverick?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Talk about an erection.
Phenomenal movie.
Yeah,
It's just
phenomenal. 3.5 stars out of 4 for me.
I bled red, white, and blue when I was in there.
Yeah, it was amazing. He's in that, and then he's also in
Bad Times at
the El Royale. Yeah. So in both of those, he kind of played this like quiet, definitely introverted person, where Ben Mears is definitely more cerebral, but you know, he's a go out and get him. I mean, he has sex with Susan in a park. Come on. Can you picture Lewis Pullman doing that? Do you think this is the right cast?
I mean, I recast it with all more A-listers.
Okay, go on.
So I went John David Washington. This is a Denzel movie if you made it right, like with mystery and everything like that. Give me John David.
Oh, is that the guy from Tenet?
Tenet, yeah. Were you thinking that's a good cast, or what were you thinking?
No, I didn't really have a recast for it. I was just more interested. I'm interested to see how he plays the part because he has to be a little more big swinging dick.
You also have to remember, these actors are all super outgoing, and most of these people are like drama people, you know? Like, so like, every time they're playing a shy person, they're just really good at acting. That's all it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah. For Barlow, we have William Sadler, who you might remember from such things as, oh my God, he's been in so many weird movies. He was in Shawshank, he was in The Mist, which is another Stephen King movie.
Shawshank is what I remember.
Yeah, so you remember him from Shawshank.
Yeah.
Because that's like what I do as well. He's like in Die Hard. He usually plays like the bad guy. In Die Hard 2, excuse me. I don't love him as a vampire. I mean, I think there's been better Draculas. We have Gary Oldman played in Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like, he's really good.
I casted him.
Did you really?
Barlow. Yeah, I was like, I feel like he's played a vampire.
Oh, that's funny.
Whatever.
Yeah, he was in the Bram Stoker version.
All right, well, he's running it back, kid.
Yeah.
Run it back with him.
But another interesting cast from this Salem's Lot that's coming out in 2023 is Mike Ryerson, our boy, is played by Spencer Treat Clark, who, when I looked it up, I was like, I know that face. Where do I know that face? And I refused to look it up, and it finally hit me. He's the little boy from Gladiator. I was like, I'm so glad I figured that out on my own because I was wondering. And yeah, Gladiator.
Yeah, he still has the exact same eyes. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, because he's an adult now. So I was like, wait, why do I recognize him?
I went Mark Strong for Straker, who like kind of fits the description. Do you know him? He's a British dude. He's in...
Oh, he's in like the Kingsman.
The Kingsman, yeah.
And the Sherlock Holmes stuff, he plays the bad guy.
Yeah, he just looks like the description: tall, skinny, bald. Like,
yeah, that checks out. That's a great cast. They use the guy from Game of Thrones, who's actually just in the end of Game of Thrones. Pilu Asbake. I don't know how to spell his name. What about Burke? Did you have Burke? Matthew Burke.
Oh, I probably should have cast him. No, I only casted Father Callahan.
Okay, who do you get for Father Callahan?
Gene Hackman. I don't know if he's old enough, if he's too old at this point, but I just felt that's a Gene. He's like an Irish, like
Yeah.
drunk a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed like that fits.
I can dig it. They don't have a guy John
Yeah.
Benjamin Hall or something like that. I don't know. Hickey, John Benjamin Hickey. I don't know who he is. But for Burke, they cast this guy Bill Camp, who did you ever watch The Queen's Gambit? He's the guy that like teaches her how to play chess.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to pick him out of lineup.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to pick
yeah.
him out of a lineup, but it checks out. I think he'll be really good in that role. I'd say, would you recommend this book? But I think that's a hard pass from you.
Yeah, well, I remember telling you when we read The Body, I was like, oh, I really liked it, but it felt like much longer than 6 hours. I was like, if it went a little bit longer than this, I don't know if I'd like it as much, but it was a perfect amount of length. This one was like, what would happen if he wrote a book that should be 6 hours and made it 18?
I feel bad because last year I'd read The Shining, and I like The Shining a lot, and it's like the same amount. It's like a 16-hour book, and it does have dull spaces, but like not nearly as much. And there's a ton that goes down at the end, so I kind of feel bad that I suggested this one because it was coming out, and it didn't live up for me either. I really wouldn't recommend it. Like if someone was like, I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and I've read all of them, and I haven't read Salem's Lot, I'd say, well, go for it. But if someone said I'm trying to get into Stephen King, what should I read? I would not say Salem's Lot.
I saw some article being like he's written 75 books.
Yeah, insane. Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
the 75 ranked the 75. This was like 18. It wasn't like you recommended one that's like 60th, It was like, this one's pretty well received. So I also think during the era when they have nothing to do that you're just like, well, give me fucking 18 hours of reading.
Yeah, give me Stephen King's vampire book.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever watched the fucking old movies in the 70s that are like 3.5 hours for no reason? Like, that's what this is,
Well, some of them are really good, but yeah, I know what you're saying. So we wouldn't recommend the book. We got there. Next up, so summer beach reads are kind of gone now. It is September. We got to start going back to school. So we're going to do a quick run of back to school books. So we're going to start with 6th grade reading level and kind of work our way up from there. We'll probably hit a few of these. And we're going to start with The Giver, LOIS LOWRY. Everyone read this in 6th grade. I feel like it deserves a reread. You definitely do. Mm-hmm. So we'll probably have that coming out fairly quickly after this one. So if anyone listens to this and is interested, go pick it up. I'm sure it's available at your local library. It was available on Libby right now. I didn't even have to wait. So if you want the audiobook, check that out. Otherwise, go pick up a paperback.
Giddy up.
Giddy up. All right. Well, this was fun as always. And I guess we'll see you next time. All right. Bye now.